Hey, this is Elephant Gratitude. Yo, this message is for a good friend of mine who engages me in very challenging philosophical explorations. Although I don't know if you like that concept of philosophy, but to me that seems what we do. I'm gonna call him Wilbur from Idaho. He's a potato farmer, and his potatoes are delicious. You said 2 years ago that it was important that we remain friends because we politically and philosophically, we kind of mirror each other on the spectrum. Me leaning a little bit more to the left, you leaning a little bit more to the right. And you felt it necessary for us to engage each other and challenge each other for a variety of purposes, but one being, as you call it, to hold the middle in this bifurcated society where extremists on both ends seem to be going to war with each other. You feel it's necessary for people like us to, on a micro level, sort out our differences and see if we can love and respect each other in spite of those differences, and possibly create a synergy between our two perspectives. That's why I highly value our friendship. This is all on the fly, because I find if I don't record on the fly, I ain't never going to record, because I somehow want it to be perfect. So, Wilbur, thank you for the bag of potatoes you sent in the mail. Really appreciate it. Our last discussion, we were talking about the excesses of the left, particularly the woke movement. And we were talking about the words that are used and often weaponized by, say, extreme fundamentalists on the left to damage other people's reputations. I certainly agree with that sentiment. We did you answered my question, is there extremism on the right? And you said, certainly there is. Certainly there is. It's just that the extremism on the left seems to be nudging its way into our collective consciousness, particularly in the form of wokeism. Now, I certainly don't consider myself woke, but I resist being anti-woke for several reasons. One, I think it gives it too much energy. It gives wokeism too much energy. And two, I think that leaves you prone to being like almost woke in the other direction. And I think this is where our tension, normally we usually have like an hour flow in our conversation, and then we hit a point of contention that halts our conversation, and that's where we hang out a little. So I just want to outline a little bit of where we got stuck. You brought up the word, the neologism cis, which from my understanding refers to a person whose gender expression matches their biological sex. And you pointed out that you have this resistance and you have a mood to push back against Is that a helicopter? I think it's a helicopter. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, cis. Hello, I'm cis. You brought up some interesting points about it. Our main point of contention was that did I mention welcome to Elephant Gratitude, by the way? I'm expressing gratitude towards you, Wilbur, and your potatoes. And in our conversations, they always challenge me. So the word cis, you see it used as somewhat of a slur, which in some cases I would agree that it is used as a slur. I'm at the head of the trail, so I'm going to do another walk. I suggest, and you also had this interesting intuition that cis is a bit of a troll because you feel the people who invented these terms are wanting to like troll straight men with a word that closely sounds like sissy. I don't know if that's the case, but I wouldn't put it past people. I wouldn't put it past someone who comes from that extreme fundamentalist left perspective to say, oh, cis, that would be a great word. That would really get under their skin. You think people in these extremist thought movements want to get under people's skin? I think so. There are bad faith actors in every ideology, really, but this is an example. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. Yeah. You're a cis white man. Ugh. Yeah, I see that as a possibility. I think my point was that in combating political correctness, the instinct to fight back in such a way, to rail against people who are using a new word that might be a troll, that might be weaponized to get under the skin of people of a different ideological perspective, to push back in that way, in the spirit of, like, I'm done with that word. I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to resist it being mainstreamed in our cultural lexicon. That just strikes me as a political correctness in the other direction. So it's like playing the same game that we're trying to mitigate. So my approach to it was just, okay, here's a new word. I'm going to use it, but I'm going to reappropriate it in a manner that works for me. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a term that denotes someone whose gender expression aligns with their biological sex. Like I've told you, Wilbur, I think this we're creating too much. We're pouring too much energy into this trans issue, which should be a lot easier than it is, except that I think that human beings derive some kinky sense of power over remaining in conflict. And I think this issue of trans is just the battleground on which I see this manifested. This obsession with being in conflict, with creating these divisions and this Manichaean struggle where I'm good and righteous and those are the bad people. And I agree, terms like cis, or all these gender terms, can be used towards those, that weird pathological tendency to be in conflict. So my solution is refuse the conflict. Like, just accept that it's a new word and use it whenever you feel it's appropriate. If you feel it's not useful to you, don't use it. But if you just took it and say, okay, I'll use the word cis, that's fine. Wouldn't that create less struggle, less tension? Dare I say, wouldn't that piss them off? Like people who use that as a weapon, if you just used it as just another word and didn't take it so seriously? To me, that's like a Zen way of dealing with something that may trigger you to offense. but just the very, if you're triggered to offense, I'm suggesting, Wilbur, that you've let them do it. So that's just that was our difference in our discussion here, for all the world to see. That was very stream of consciousness. I'm sure I have more to say, but it's this video's long enough. Okay, later, brother.